Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me and see me well. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone who is joining us. And as usual, I would like to thank you all for the attention to Ukraine, to the problems that Ukrainian people are coming through these days. Actually, this month, so that's already over 6 months. I would like to today to first of all ask you to share the information about our events with as many people as possible, because we are here to share the information, the true information of what is going on in Ukraine and in Ukrainian agricultural fields, as well as in the battlefields, because the best weapon in this war is, of course, the truth. We as Ukrainians and all our team, we are Ukrainians, we know what's going on in our country. So, and using our networks, we try to collect the information firsthand. So let's start today's show. It's not a show, it's a slideshow, I wanted to say. First of all, with greeting everyone and okay, here we have, I'm sorry, there is, no, this is the wrong, I'm sorry, yeah, now everything's fine. So today I would like to start from the information about the project, due or thanks to which we have the possibility to deliver this information to you on a bi-weekly basis. So when the war started, and it was 6 months ago, as I said, we started the project that is meant to support small family farms in Ukraine. This is called World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine. Our aim is to support the small family farms and small individual farmers in Ukraine who suffered from the war. So there are criteria of the people who we can help and who we can work with in this initiative. So the most important thing is that they suffered from the war and cannot rebuild themselves. We are trying to help them in 4 directions. First is to reconstruct their houses. Second is to reconstruct their production capacities. Third is to repurchase the farm equipment. And fourth, to repurchase their farm animals. In order to be most transparent, and as it is always repeated by us, corruption-free, we invited reputable people to join us on the board of ambassadors, and they are not only overseeing how the money is spent, but they can influence our decisions, because each of the money spending decision is to be approved by the board of ambassadors. So we have 2 important principles. First of all, we never give off cash to the people. Instead, we provide them with the services and the equipment. Secondly, no upgrade. If they had a house with 3 rooms, they will get the same house with 3 rooms. All the upgrade is up to them in the future. So we are asking everyone who is able to help in any way to, first of all, donate to their LifeNets. This is the NGO, American NGO, which is scored 100 out of 100 scores, or you can, or anyone can donate $200, and in addition to that, get the access to our courses, online agricultural courses, for free. We have a very huge library of the latest information on production, or travel with us. And by the way, the nearest program that we are going to propose to everyone willing to travel with us is New Zealand in December. So these are the monetary ways to help, to assist. then there are ways that we are looking for to spread the word, because this program, World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine, is about raising awareness as much as raising money, because awareness about what is going on is vital. Not only us, but there will be other foundations and programs supporting the rural Ukraine and these small family farms. This is our team in Ukraine who are working, preparing the information for the biweekly, working with the farmers in the fields and making all this program work. So thank you for the support, and with their help, I'm able today to provide you the following information. So the battlefield updates. First of all, in 6 months, Russia, although exceeding Ukraine in numbers of soldiers and numbers of artillery and military equipment, they have made little progress. The reason is that they lack motivation, they lack order, they lack supply. And Ukrainians instead are fighting for their own land. This is some of the maps of the recent advancements. The reason why we allow them to take these lands, one of the reasons is that we try to minimize the losses of the soldiers, unlike Russians. And I will tell you more facts about how it is happening in the battlefields. So Russians have, after they retreated from the north, they have paid most of their attention to the Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast, so-called Donbas region. Now they have succeeded, almost succeeded, except for one small village or town, Pisky, to take all the Luhansk region, which is called in Ukraine Oblast, and they are trying their best to take over Donetsk. However, Donetsk is still at most Ukrainian territory. Within the month, and this is the information from the foreign sources, reliable foreign sources, the Institute of War, this is the black line that they had controlled before and red line after. And you can see the dates here are 1 month. Black line, this is July, and red line, this is August. Most important part is the Kherson Oblast and Kherson city, the capital of the oblast, the region. Why? Because majority of the connections to the peninsula, Crimean Peninsula, comes through this oblast, including the electricity, including the water supply, including the railroads, including the ordinary roads like car roads. Therefore, for them, it is very important to hold these positions, but neither the people in the city support them, nor they have ability to do that. The reason, number one, is geographical position. Kherson city is separated from the rest of their army by Dnieper River, and there are 2 bridges, Antonivsky Bridge and one more, which we successfully have damaged, so that Russians do not have a supply of weapons and food and all the things they need to support the army. And the army here is huge, so they lack the transportation. They are trying to build right now here the temporarily bridges, but none of them can function in the way they need to. In order to destroy those bridges, Ukrainian armed forces have used HIMARS systems for a number of times, and each of those times the damages were added to the construction. As a result, right now these roads are not safe to pass even by cars, not to say about heavy military equipment. Unfortunately, the last is happening right now, or has just happened, attack towards this bridge from the Ukrainian side. ended, according to BBC and according to what we have heard from the people in Kherson, from our sources, there were people working, on the bridge trying to repair it. Those were the company employees who supported the occupants and who negotiated the price and decided to cooperate with them, because the first company who was supposed to be building and constructing and repairing that bridge, the Kherson company, they said, we are not going to cooperate with the occupants, and they refused. However, the other company, they signed the, so to say, they betrayed the country and they decided to work. So their employees were on that bridge. Of course, these were civilian people, and none of them deserved this outcome. However, they knew the risk that they were taking, and for some reason they decided to take it. The second bridge, as I mentioned, this is the bridge at the hydropower station, Kakhovsky Bridge. It is also unfunctional. So huge army is cut out from the supply on the east. This is Kherson. You can see the city, and this is how the river comes. So all the occupied area here is separated from Kherson by the river. There were rumors that a lot of officers and higher ranked military people, once the situation with the bridges became dangerous for them, they left Kherson, but the ordinary soldiers remained. My source of information in Kherson said that at 5 p.m. there are no people, no civilians on the streets, only military. There are about 20% of civilians left in the city. All the rest are Russian military. They need food, they need place to stay, they need fun, they need ammunition, they need gas. This all must be supplied somehow to them, in order for them to survive and to hold the positions. Instead, Ukrainian army, they are waiting, because time is our supporter. The longer they stay there, the less they have to survive, and the weaker they are becoming. This is our idea of what's the strategy here, and not only ours. There are a lot of military analytics who support this idea that Ukrainian and Ukrainian allies are waiting for Russian army to become too weak there. We are also very successful in destroying the supply of ammunition, because before we received HIMARS, and those are the weapons that we use heavily for this purpose, our positions were very many times per day or heavily attacked by Russian artillery. There were thousands of shots per one city, like Nikopol, before that, but now, as HIMARS, long-range missiles, very accurate, they are destroying the storage facilities for those ammunitions and military bases. The amounts of attack are much less. So this is another idea, or another characteristics of the policy of the war policy that Ukrainian army along with allies are doing. So in order to, this is the, so to say, modern style war. Also, there were a lot of, a number of military bases that were used in to attack Ukrainian cities. And one of them is the airport in Sevastopol, Crimea, Belbek Airport. This is the, from there, a lot of planes were taken off and shooting missiles towards Ukrainian cities of Mykolaiv, of Dnipropetrovsk, Vinnytsia, and a lot of others. So it is not stated officially, but from all the specialists and from all the analytical data that is coming, the only conclusion is made that this is either the rebellious rebels or the Ukrainian army. How it was done, it is not stated officially, but the airport was destroyed and at least half of their fleet was also destroyed, of the Black Sea Russian fleet. Another location is in the Russian territory, and here neither Russians nor Ukrainians proved or took the responsibility. So Ukrainians didn't take the responsibility for that attack. Russians said that those are not Ukrainians who attacked, but there are a number of depots in Belgorod Oblast, neighboring to Ukraine, that were destroyed recently and successfully destroyed. Just the storage of the ammunition exploded, not the civilians. There is no weapon that we could reach there. And of course, there is also the Russian anti-missile system that should be working. So there is an idea, it must have been the locals who are, again, rebels who have blown it up. No one knows for sure, but this is definitely happening towards the victory of Ukraine and not for the good of Russian war aggression. Unfortunately, they still, even though their artillery ammunition is not supplied well, they still use missiles from the airplanes and from their ships in both Caspian and Black Sea. And as a result, they are shooting civilian or infrastructural objects. It was recently published that the statistics of their shots is 1 to 13, 1 military, 13 civilians. In each of the attacks towards civilian locations, people are dying and children are dying, which is even worse. So this is one of the days of the examples, and this is what comes out after their shelling. Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, Dnipro, also Nikopol, those are the cities that are constantly covered with their missiles. Nikopol is also covered by artillery because it's located across the Dnieper River. Nothing can stop those terrorists because they are just destroying wherever they can reach. They do not target military objects, they do not target infrastructural objects in these cities. They just simply destroy everything they can, unfortunately. There is this interesting information, death toll. It was taken from BBC source, starting from the beginning of the war. And you can see that the number of civilians that died were the highest when Russians came to Ukraine in March, and they were staying in the northern part of Ukraine. They say that they probably were very much angry that Ukrainians didn't allow them in and were fighting back, so they simply killed the civilians. Another opinion is that, and it is already a proven fact, that they were coming with list of people in those towns and in those cities who are against Russian dominance in Ukraine, so to say, patriots, and they were, and their families were attacked first. So probably this was the task of those militaries who came to northern Ukraine to first of all eliminate the people who would be against Russian invasion. As a result, after they retreated, Russian military administration rerouted them to the areas where there were the heaviest fights, Donetsk Oblast and Luhansk Oblast, and that battalion or those battalions are by now totally destroyed. So there aren't any survivals. This is how Russian military administration are trying to hide and kill all the evidence, but not only this. I will tell more a little later. This is the slide also from BBC that shows the economical influence to the damages, economical damages to the infrastructure and real estate and everything that was built in Ukraine. It's not to speak about the lost profit, it's just what was already built. And as you can see, residential buildings are a leading factor here. This proves the fact that Russians are not targeting military objects. They have many times spoken on media that their military must attack Ukrainian civilians in order to frighten them so much that the Ukrainian society will ask military to retreat. That's never going to happen because we are Ukrainians, but still they continue target civilians. As a result, a lot of people needed to flee. And this is the map, it's in Ukrainian, but you can see the countries that have provided shelter to Ukrainian refugees. Poland, there was a joke at the beginning of the war that Polish citizens will start to learn Ukrainian language soon. And there were more of Ukrainian license plates cars than Polish. Of course, Germany, and I'm also currently located in Germany. We are thankful for the country and for the people who helped us find shelter here and other countries. There is a huge number of Ukrainians who went to Russia. Majority of them are there because of inability to come to Ukraine. You see, when these territories over here were occupied, Russians, first of all, built a very serious block post or wall or border with rest of Ukraine, so that no food supply, nothing is crossing this border, especially the people. And the people in these areas who stayed and didn't have a chance to flee before, in order to cross towards Ukraine, they need to pass a number of checkups for being loyal to Russia. It means that if you support Ukraine, you will not pass this check. And Russians will know you, your name, your contacts, and your position. So tomorrow you should wait for guests. Therefore, people tried to keep silent and not to attract much attention. Instead, they were traveling through Crimea, through this bridge to Russia, and those who had a possibility to find job in the EU or who speak English or any of the languages in Europe, they were using Belarus and then Baltic countries to go into EU. Others who do not speak other languages, they stayed. Unfortunately, a lot of children were just taken, kidnapped, so to say, by Russians and brought to Russia and spread it all over the Russian territories, just children. Therefore, we have such a huge number, almost 2 million people in Russia. And of course, those who support Russia. That's unfortunately, there are still people like that who are trying to justify what Russia is doing with Ukraine. Very important date was on the 24th of August. This is the Day of Independence. This is the 31st anniversary of independence and the 6 months anniversary of the war. We were expecting a lot of Russian attacks and shellings to this date, because we know that Russians, they like the dates, and we were expecting, and everybody, including the United States intelligence and Great Britain intelligence, were showing the numbers of missiles increasing in the close to the border planes, artillery units, and so on. Thanks God, it was not that severe, but still there was a lot of shellings. Before going into details about Russian attacks, this year was the first year when we had this kind of parade. The military parade that Russians were expecting to do in February, maximum in March, in the center of Kiev, with their equipment and their soldiers. Instead, it came into being 6 months later, but we can see how their equipment looks like. So this is the second biggest army of the world. Now speaking about the alarms or sirens of the air raid sounding on that date in Ukraine. There were almost 200 times that these alarms sounded, and there were still 58 attacks toward the cities. Some of them, the rest of them, were just simulations to bring to frighten people, and there were also a number of false claimings that infrastructural objects were mined all over the western and central Ukraine biggest cities. Unfortunately, one of their attacks, of their shellings, reached the railway station in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. They hit the train, not the military object, but the train with people, and as a result, 25 died. 3 people were wounded in the houses nearby the station. Now the total number of Russians that died in this war on Ukrainian territory is 46,250. Today, I've been watching the interview with one of the ladies, humanitarian non-governmental organization leader in Russia, who said that these numbers are accurate. However, Western world is Western intelligence are claiming this is even lower than it is in the fact, in reality. And it was just last week, or this week, I'm sorry, that we found out the official number of Ukrainian soldiers. If you remember, I mentioned that Ukrainian army is leading the war so that we'd rather retreat than lose the soldiers' lives. So we cherish the lives of our soldiers much more. Unfortunately, there are still those who were taken as war prisoners to Russia, and some of them are being treated very illegally, so to say, because there are rules of war, and combatants, they are not to be put to court for the orders that they are fulfilling. But here, Russians, or actually they are marionettes in the so-called Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics, they decided to organize an illegal tribunal for the Mariupol soldiers, for the soldiers who were defending the Mariupol city, the Azov. Unfortunately, we haven't heard about their how they're doing since August 23rd. We knew that there was supposed to be this court, this tribunal on the 24th, but no news are coming, still waiting. A very mythical terroristic attack happened inside Russia. One of the ideologists of this neo-Eurasian movement, which actually was the one who developed the idea and who brought this idea into Putin's head to attack, to bring the war to Ukraine and to take over Ukraine. Dugin, Alexander Dugin, his daughter exploded in the car. At first, it all looked like he was supposed to be in that car, and he was very upset. But then, when after the explosion of the car and after their news reviews that nobodies could be identified, there comes the funeral day, and the news start publishing this picture. So after the car got burned down, they're burying their body, which looks very okay as after the burning. It is very strange, because at first he was her father looked very distressed at the accident place, and then there are photographs that he is almost smiling at her funeral. So there are a lot of opinions why it happened, and a lot of versions what it can lead to. One of the most popular, so to say, or the most that looks like true, that these extremist movements or people who are extremists in Russia, they wanted this war to gain new developments, and they wanted to, at any cost, to take over Ukraine. And Putin, as well as the official administration of the country, were too slow to their opinion. Therefore, they decided to bring, so to say, fuel into this flame of war, just like they did it with the Chechen Republic war. They couldn't take over Chechen country at first time in 1995. So in 4 years, they faked terroristic attacks to their civilian objects and blamed it to Chechen people. As a result, they took a second round of attack to this country and took it over. So some of the military analytics said that this might be the scenario they wanted to make it to play through. However, so far it happened. This murder happened over a week ago. Nothing changed in the war. Now, the problem or the topic that is or can affect everyone in the world, the nuclear threat. Russia has always been showing off with their nuclear power, and one of the things they did in Ukraine, they captured 2 nuclear power plants, which one of which is functioning and is considered to be the biggest in Europe, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And they were shelling it with artillery have been shelling it for months already, at least weeks, over a month, and they were blackmailing the world that it's either us who controls it or it doesn't exist, which means we will destroy it, and the consequences might be detrimental for all Europe or even Russia. At first, they acted as if they didn't understand the danger, but then their common sense started to prevail in their actions, and we noticed that they are trying to disconnect it from Ukrainian power lines and redirect the power into Crimea and into the regions that they have occupied, which means that they need this power plant in order to sustain the life in those regions, and they are not interested in destroying it. However, there were some cases, some attacks that might have led to leaking of the nuclear threat, and it was stated in their media that their soldiers and their people who were at this station were hospitalized with the radiation disease, just like it happened with the soldiers who died after holding Chernobyl nuclear power plant in February and March. A lot of them died in Belarus hospitals because they didn't realize and they didn't know that the territory around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant is very dangerous from the radiation standpoint. So they were digging their trenches, and when all of them started vomiting, they were taken to the hospital, but it was too late. So many of them died. The similar thing is, this an opinion. There is no proven fact right now, but they say that this is what happened with some of those who stayed in Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. We have devoted a lot of efforts and a lot of time to explaining what they plan to do with our nuclear power plants and how they wanted to capture Ukraine using nuclear threat. If you're interested, you can go back to our connection from August 12th. It's on YouTube. There are very interesting ideas or very interesting opinions of how it could have developed. However, it is only right now that all the world, including the MAGATE, the institution that is supposed to be controlling the nuclear power plants throughout the world, started to take actions. And I would like to quote the official statement from United States that it can be one of the reasons, the explosion or the any accident at this nuclear power plant can be one of the reasons why United States can join Ukraine in this war officially. So it was a very serious statement that some people say made Russians sober. And yesterday, unfortunately, there was a fire around this power plant, which resulted in shutting down the last line to Ukraine. All the 6 blocks were shut off. But today, just about 1 hour ago, we received the confirmation that one of the lines was fixed and it is still supplying electricity to Ukraine. What Russia wants to do is to shut it down from the Ukrainian network, instead to throw the energy towards Crimea and the occupied territories, which they haven't yet done. Now, the political updates. We have been talking a lot about Russians mining the territory of Ukraine. That was both the rural territory, the forests, the battlefields, and also the fields like agricultural areas. Here are the numbers that were calculated that are needed to spend for demining. The numbers are huge, and in some places are it is more expensive to demine the field than to buy this land. So it's more than the value of the land. And here the price is stated as 200 euros for 1 day of work of the troop or the team of demining officers. And it goes to 4 billion euros for demining the objects of 50,000 square kilometers. That's what needs to be demined in terms of agricultural fields. But there are 180,000 square kilometers of the land that must be demined, including the battlefields. Now the export. Export is another leverage that Russians wanted to use to blackmail the world and Ukraine and make Ukraine surrender. As you know, there was a problem of exporting 25 million metric tons of the produce starting from the beginning of the war to the international markets. It was stuck in Ukraine. Since the war started, we succeeded fine-tuning all the remaining routes we succeeded to export about up to 11 million tons. Only in August, and that was date of 19th of August, 3 million tons was exported within 19 days. It is after, or it is the first 19 days, first 3 weeks of the grain initiative working. The grain initiative, this is the corridor that allowed first time since the war started to use sea ports for exports, 3 of them. So we exported within 5 months a little bit over 8 million metric tons. These are the numbers break down through the alternative ways of transportation. Ports here is the seaports, the Danube River ports, as well as ferry. So those are numbers to combine. There were only 3 ports on Danube that were able to export and work during the war. All the rest was done by rail and trucks. In August, it is expected that we will sum up or total 4 million metric tons exported through all the possible ways, including the sea and including ground transportation. Before the war, it was 5-6 million metric tons, at least 5 in the worst years. This is according to Deputy Chair of Ukrainian Agricultural Council. This is the table which shows what are the ships, what are the commodities, and what are the connections or destinations where these commodities are taken. All the ships have started to export since the beginning of this grain initiative. So within 3 weeks, we succeeded to allow 33 ships to leave Ukrainian ports with grain commodities and with agricultural commodities. For you to understand, 16 of them were stuck in Ukrainian ports because they entered those ports before the war and they couldn't leave. So another 18 vessels are waiting to be departing soon. It is working, and it has brought this grain initiative has brought a lot of hope to the farmers, and I must say that it changed the perception of the future prospects for the farmers. Therefore, they are more willing and more eager to do the planting of winter crops and to do their best finding the money, the budget for this, rather as compared to the July. So now we are shifting to the production, and our production right now is the winter crops that were planted last year in the fall that were growing through the war and which resulted in a very good yields, which is very strange because of the lack of inputs, and all the forecasts were showing the drop of the yields. However, we succeeded to even in some crops get more than last year. So totally we have harvested 25 million metric tons. That is in addition to the other 25 million metric tons that were stuck as of March. Within the war, 6 months of war, the export concluded in 9 to 10 million metric tons. Just to remind you, this is the breakdown on the commodities that have been harvested as of August 19. You see that buckwheat, that there are some crops here that are spring crops, but they have already been, their harvest has already started, and it is going on right now. Majority of the winter crops are harvested already. So the yields last year, 2021, was very good. So to compare with the average, it was a huge success for Ukraine. Probably the best yield as any of the previous 5 to 7 years. So we are comparing here the yields of this year, 2022, to the best year within 7 years. Therefore, I would say that this is not a fair comparison, but still, we approached as much as possible to the numbers last year, and even taking into consideration that the inputs were minimum. The reason for that is that Mother Nature helped, or as they say, God supported Ukrainians. We had good weather, more or less timely rains in the majority of the lands, not in all the lands, because I know the areas which are suffering from the drought, for example, in Kiev Oblast, Volodyarka region, or in parts of Odessa, but majority of the farmland in Ukraine had good rainfall. Now the prices. Everybody were asking how the prices will change since the opening of the grain initiative. And as we can see right now, they are not changing very radically for the majority of crops, but for sunflower. And there is a reason for that. To my opinion, sunflower is mostly 50% of sunflower is produced in Ukraine. Therefore, shutting down the flow of sunflower from Ukraine was had a very big impact on the market and the price. So we were seeing the prices going as up as to $2,000 in Poland. Now it is $550 in the world on the world market, but it is a little bit less than 400 in Ukraine. And 2 weeks ago, it was 345, so $50 more. All the other crops remained pretty much the same. Why so? Because the hryvnia, Ukrainian currency, got cheaper compared to dollar. And although the prices went up 10-15% compared to the prices of those 2 weeks ago, they are still in dollars pretty much the same or a little bit higher, not seriously higher. This is not a good sign so far for the farmers who are waiting for the price to come better, because majority of the farmers, individual farmers, mid-sized farmers, they prefer to wait until the price is better for them to start selling. And the commodities that you saw in the previous slide are being exported worldwide. Those are mainly coming from the holdings. And a little later, I will speak more about the state of things in big agricultural corporations. So what is influencing the export of the commodities? First of all, the location and the distance to the ports or the terminals that can take it abroad or across the border. There are two of those very important ones, and it is located, so all the flow of commodities are going to the southwest. And the further it is, the more expensive it is. So you can see the price per 1 ton of commodity to be exported to from this area. You see the closest ones are $95. The furthest ones are $120. So the transportation fee eats up all the value of the commodities. So we mentioned that at the beginning of the war, we had about 25 million metric tons of the ending stocks. So those were the commodities from the previous year. We succeeded exporting by the August time about 10 million metric tons. And there are different sources of information. Some say that right now we have about 15 left from the previous crop. Some say we have well, way to prove which number is most correct under the conditions of war and under the conditions when everybody tries to remain to preserve their commodities in their storage facilities. So until it is sold, no one will know for sure what the number is. But for you to understand, it is still huge. Why we pay attention to that? Because the storage capacities are limited. And again, there were different numbers, official numbers. The Ukrainian local numbers said that we had about 57 million metric tons capacity to store agricultural commodities. Whereas the United Nations, that's probably one of the good things that they are useful for, the useful things, one of the moments when United Nations is really useful, the statistics. So they provided the number of 75 million metric tons total capacity of storage capacity for agricultural crops within Ukraine. And here's the breakdown how it was affected by the war. So 14% were damaged or destroyed by the war. We've been showing a lot of photographs and videos how Russians shelled and how the elevators were burning and destroyed by the missiles. Again, the occupied territories, those were territories along the shore, and they had huge capacities in terms of storage. So 10%, like 7.5 million metric tons, were just locked down there. We do not have access to them. And as of August 2nd, 30% of them were filled with 22 million metric tons of the commodities left from the previous years. That's both for the local consumption and to be exported. You see how the numbers differ. And we are trying to find the official numbers, but still there are, being official, there are a few. There is a fork, so to say, of numbers for each of the things that we are talking here about. So the total capacity of the elevators, the total production, the total acreage, and so on. Like I said, after the war, when it is sold, we will have the exact numbers. Right now, we can just guess. Now, the thing that is something shocking, because yesterday when I talked to my close friend and a farmer from Kherson Oblast, and you can see I've talked a lot today about Kherson. This is the area that is under occupation. It has been so since March. The life over there, we have heard little about life over there. And this was eyes-opening conversation yesterday for me. So first of all, starting from the simple things, people are, there are a few people left. So a lot of them moved out from the territories. Those who left, they are predominantly unable to travel long ways, and they are older people. I'm talking in general, not just about the Kherson city, but in general about the territory. They do not have the ability to receive the pensions, the money from Ukrainian government, because majority of their pensions were delivered to them by the post officer in cash. So now they started receiving Russian, so in rubles, 10,000 rubles per month per one pensioner, which equals 6,000 hryvnias. In Ukraine, they were receiving about 2,400 hryvnias. Now they're receiving 6,000 hryvnias. At first glance, it looks like an improvement. However, if they go to the supermarkets or to the groceries in the village, they see that the food prices went 3 times higher because there is no supply from the Ukrainian territory and there is limited supply from Crimea. Therefore, Crimea was always receiving the produce from Ukraine. Now it's going vice versa. So the prices went up. The assortment is much lower. For those who haven't been to Ukraine, I must say that, for example, ketchup, simple ketchup, you can find at least 2 dozens of the options in the decent supermarket of brands of different sorts of ketchup that you can buy. The same for pasta, the same for meat, the same for frozen products. So we had huge assortment or variety of products depending on their preferences, on the price, on the organics and non-organics, origin, and so on. In this case, the assortment went much lower. So in the city of Kherson, as I mentioned today, there are about 20% people left. All the rest are Russian soldiers. At 5 p.m., the streets are empty and all you can see are just the soldiers. Before that, before the recent times, before the attempts to counter-attack by Ukrainian forces, those who live in Kherson Oblast, and they were not in a hurry to find shelter somewhere else, they were saying that we can wait if the situation becomes more worse. We always have a possibility to live through Crimea. So the route for them was to go to Crimea and then to the continental Russia, and from there either to stay in Russia or to leave to Europe. However, when these counter-attacks attempts started, Russian administration, they have locked the borders in Crimea for the people who are younger than 60 years. As a result, those who left in the occupied territories, they have no way to cross the border in this direction, and if they go to Crimea, they will stay in Crimea and not be able to leave to continental Russia because they can be invited to the army because they are their military age. 30% of all the governmental institutions like clinics and schools, kindergartens are going to function in this winter. The 70% are closed. If we speak about schools, majority of the directors and teachers refused to cooperate and refused to change the educational program towards the Russian one, with Russian history facts, so to say, and they just fired those teachers and those directors of the schools. Instead, they hired new ones who were before that taking the lower positions. For example, the physical training teacher or geography teacher who had no experience in administrative work becomes the director of the school. The same thing with the local authorities. The person who was a drunk addict who had no education becomes the the mayor of the region just because he supports the Russian Federation aggression towards Ukraine. Now the situation with the farmers, and this is what made me most terrified or shocked. So farmers cannot stop the production. They must do something. They must do planting. They must pay to the people who work there. They must supply the land plot holders with some either produce or money, because these land plot holders are rural people who depend upon money coming from this land. It's either they grow something there themselves or they give it to the farmer, and the farmer instead pays them with the commodities or with money. So private farmers in that area, in the occupied areas, understanding that, and also understanding the fact that if they just close the door, not plant anything, let's assume that they will be able to pay to their employees and to their landlord holders when they return after the territory is recaptured by Ukrainians. There might be no business, there might be no infrastructure, there might be nothing. Because, for example, in case when I talked with the farmer, he said that the closest neighbor to him is just wishing and waiting for his possibility to take over this farm. He supports Russians, he collaborates with Russians, and he wants to just take over the farm of his neighbor. And there are always people who are who have no dignity and who act like I don't know who to compare them with, but still it's illegal, it's immoral, and it's not right. So there are still people like that. This territory, Kherson territory, is a very heavily irrigated area. The precipitation there is far below 400 millimeters. Therefore, in the Soviet times, there was the best developed network of irrigation built, artificial irrigation, the channels. And majority of farmers depend upon this irrigation. So right now, when their territory is occupied and their system is not yet fine-tuned, Russian, I mean system, they do not need to pay anything for this water, and they just take the water and irrigate their fields. However, they cannot buy the inputs they need in a good quality. The prices for the inputs are high. There is no, again, assortment or variety like in Ukraine. We had the budget crop protection chemicals, the analogs, so to say, non-branded but good ones, and the best ones, the premium ones. The same with seeds, the same with fertilizers. In this case, they do not have an option. In most cases, they even lack some of the positions that they need. The only thing that is better from the standpoint of agricultural production is that water and fuel. Fuel is 35 hryvnias per liter instead compared to 55 hryvnias in the unoccupied Ukraine. $1 is 40 hryvnias. So 35, it is below $1. Too good to be true. So even if they can buy the fuel, it is much lower in the quality. Even if they can buy the inputs, those are usually of poor quality. And the fact that they do not need to pay for irrigation doesn't change the situation much, especially taking into consideration that the prices for the commodities in the occupied territories are even lower than in Ukraine right now. So Russia is claiming that they are doing good for the farmers, for the people in those occupied areas. But even though they have the possibility to export, to organize the route, the transportation of those commodities, they do not give the decent price. The price is below the break-even point. It is at the break-even point in Ukraine, and it is below break-even point in the occupied territories. And the most mind-blowing was the story that I heard, and we have the information who and where, but we will not be mentioning it here. So one of the farmers was asked by the military to dig a trench in the area near Kherson city. So he ordered his employee, the tractor driver, to go and fulfill and do what the military said. So one day we spent for digging this trench. Then the next day they come over and say, come back and dig it back. So put soil there back. The tractor driver went there, and when he returned, his hands were shaking and he couldn't speak well. The reason was that he was burying the soldiers who were killed, as well as the soldiers that were heavily wounded, still alive but not able to get out from that trench. So that is not the only case happening. We started to investigate this topic because it was too medieval to believe. And in my next slide, I will show you the source of Russian, that is the organization of mothers of the soldiers who help identify the soldiers in the wars. And this organization was working since the Chechen War. So she, in that interview that is very recent, proved these facts that Russians hardly ever take the bodies of their comrades who died. They do not care about those who are heavily wounded. They just leave them for death. And in addition to the fact that happened with this farmer, the people from the city, from Kherson, said that they have already learned how to differentiate or distinguish the smell from leaves, from some rubber burning, and the smell that is coming from the cemeteries. And at those cemeteries, again, Russian soldiers are burning their comrades who died and also those who are heavily wounded. So it's either they are burning or burying, but still the live soldiers, they don't want to mess with them, to treat them. It's easier for them to get rid of them. Again, the history has its cycles, and it happened before. That's the reason why it is not proven fact yet, but the farmer promised to show us the location after the counterattack, after the land is recaptured by Ukrainians. And then we will have the proof, because if the soldier who was buried was alive, then there is way to prove that he was still breathing at that moment. And the same thing happened in Chechen War. The same thing happened even after the World War II, because a lot of people, soldiers, were wounded, they were disabled. And within the 10 years time after World War II, they disappeared. There is and that's also proven fact. If you check, if you Google, you will find a lot of information about that. So there were the resorts, so to say, or the hospitals far away from big cities, where those invalids, where those disabled people from the war were invited, so to say, to improve their health, but they never returned back. And terrible things were happening there. So this is how Russian administration, the Russian government cleared the streets from those who reminded of the war. Again, the same thing is happening right now in Ukraine. And this lady, here she is, and you can see the QR code for this interview. She is Russian. She's been working with this mission starting from the 19th, and she confirms that the data coming from Ukraine about the casualties of Russian soldiers is accurate. And this is the Russians, that they don't care, and Russian people, the mothers and the wives of those soldiers, they are even afraid to apply the written form asking to search for the body of their relative, because they're afraid that it might be worse. It is with the translation, it comes with translation. It is 1 hour video, very interesting to know. So now let's get back to Ukrainian agricultural production for a while. We are about to finish here, and unfortunately, I was contacted by Mykola Hordeychuk, the potato expert. He is stuck on his way to Kyiv at this moment, and he was expecting that he will not be able to make it, and it looks like he is not going to join us today, so we will talk with him next time. So it was said that Ukraine, before the war, Ukraine was feeding 400 million people. That is minimum. And according to all the some of the analytical sources, Ukraine is capable, if everything is fine-tuned, to feed 600 million people. And in the future, with development of the technology, of the production technology, with genetics, with everything working properly and maximized, we will be able to feed even 1 billion by the year 2030. So those numbers are based on the protein source of the commodities that we produce, because protein, it is the energy, it is the most important source that actually stands for the amount of heads of either cows or people that are supplied with food. Here we see that the countries that depend most of all on our commodities. And these commodities that we sell, they are not directly consumed by the people, they're consumed by the animals, and then the animal produce is consumed by the people. So the calculation goes through the intermediate factor, the animals. It's either cows or pigs or chicken, whatever. And all the produce, meat and eggs and milk is coming to the final consumers, the people. And this is how it is calculated. So our own calculation, to be proceeded to continue from that, is that Ukrainian family farms, they make up 30% of the total production. So they farm about 30% from the crop they produce. They produce 30% of the crops and up to 40% of animal produce, which means that they can feed 120 to 160 million people by the produce that is coming from the small family farms. This is minimum 120, maximum 160 at this moment, not by the year 2030, but today. Our own observation was that every 10th farm in the north part of Ukraine after Russians retreated was destroyed or damaged so that it cannot be functioning. And these are the farms that we target to help. As a result, calculation proceeding, we end up with 12 to 16 million people that are not receiving food just because Russians destroyed the small family farms. And here we are coming to a very important analytics. Ukrainian agricultural producers are divided into three parts: agricultural corporations, private farmers, and these small family farms. You see, each of them, they farm their share in the total 28 million of hectares. Those are the total farmlands in Ukraine. So rounding it up, agricultural corporations, they make up 20% of land, less than the small family farms. Private farmers are the strongest and the biggest acreage that they farm. These are the people who succeeded to bring order into old Soviet-style collective farms. They brought the technology, they learned the business management, people management, agricultural. They are our main clients for the technological tours and agricultural production courses. They have a possibility to wait for a while before selling their commodities. And if they are located in the oblasts that are not under occupation or not under active fightings, they can survive with less profit, of course. Well, I mean, with zero profit this year, but they have an opportunity to wait. This is what they are doing. They are reluctant to sell their commodities right now because they are able to get the loans from the banks. The government is paying the interest rate. They are planting. Majority of them learned very well their homework, and they sold enough commodities before the war to have capacity to store, which we cannot say about the agricultural corporations. They are very each of them are in a little bit of trouble because their lands are spread throughout different regions, and each of them have some of the fields that were in the active military zone, which means they were not planted. There were losses to the facilities there, and these corporations, although they are still functioning, but they are more vulnerable to the situation, especially to this inability to export. As a result, as the corridor opened, the first trucks, the first ships, and still the ships that are coming from those ports are with the commodities coming from those big corporations. They have their lobbyists, and they have huge volumes of the crops that must be sold in order to bring money to them. As a result, there is one opinion, and of course it's not proven, that all these situations with inability to export, with the holding down the commodities in Ukraine, lowering the prices, might lead to bankruptcy of majority of the holdings. And these holdings, they have a lot of land that is accumulated in one business entity, so that when they are bankrupt and when the law starts working that there are foreign investors coming in that they can buy land, all they will need to do is just come and capture and buy for minimum prices these lands from the holdings. This is their opinion. It's not proven, and we have no idea who might have this interest. But this is what we've heard from the farmers speaking in the field, so to say. So there is always somebody standing behind each of the situation who can benefit from this situation. And that's one of their opinion. I hope that the only thing that I hope that this war will not bring the situation that we had in the 90s, when majority of the fields were unfarmed, were fallow for dozens of years, and there was no production, because this really will affect the world. In our situation, in our case, we are working with the small family farms. They're too small to survive, but they're too important not to produce. Therefore, all our efforts are towards these family farms. And we are asking each of you to share the link to our World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine program, so that we can, first of all, raise awareness about the problems that they are coming through by our bi-weeklies or individual presentations, and of course, raise funds to help them rebuild. They, like I said, they're too important in the total production. For example, the numbers that of the produce coming from them in some of the specializations are huge. For example, up to 90% of the potatoes are produced by these people, by these small family farms in their backyards. About 60% of dairy produce, each of them, every second of them has a cow. And as a result, it's all published on our website, and we have already had some success stories helping them. We right now are working with 3 potential aid recipients. The family of Alla Kokosha, her house was destroyed and they have no place to live. They live in a tent right now. Our aim is to help them rebuild this minimal house. At the beginning, we were wanting to help her rebuild their main house, but it was just recently that the government said it might be the case that within years they will rebuild all this house like it was before, after the victory. So our focus will be to provide them with walls and warm place to come through the winter. That was their, in Ukraine, there is such a notion, summer house. That was, it has the kitchen, it has a couple of rooms, it has a bathroom, but it's not the main house. It's mainly for the summertime. So we are helping them, and we have already proved with the Board of Ambassadors the budget. So we are working on purchasing the construction materials. Like I said, it was already approved by the ambassadors. The second is the farmer, 500 hectares farmer, Alexander. He lost all his storage facilities and majority of his equipment when Russians came through his village, and this is the list of the things that he needs to replace. But our purpose was to help him with the tractor, first of all. That was the priority, and thanks to the company Mais, to Viktor Borisov and his team, we found a free tractor for Alexander. Now we will be asking the ambassador's permission to transport it from Dnipropetrovsk Oblast to Kiev Oblast, and the only cost that World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine will cover will be the transportation costs. The tractor is for free, actually for 1 Ukrainian hryvnia. And the third aid recipient is the smallest probably egg producer out of those three, Irina Shevchenko. Her summer house or her barn was totally destroyed with animals, pigs and chicken in it on March 12th with the missile that 3 missiles hit this barn. I don't know why Russians were targeting this barn, but this is the fact. There were 3 missiles that destroyed this barn, 3 attempts, so to say. The only animals who survived are the 8 cows that were in the field. Our purpose here is to rebuild this barn so that she can bring back the animals, purchase the chicken and pigs for the winter period. The budget is $7,000, and again, we have approved it with ambassadors. We are working on purchasing the construction materials, but luckily, we found, we asked 2 of our clients, and they helped Irina with the windows for her barn, and with the refrigerators for the milk that she's, and as well as the milking equipment for her cows. The windows, we have enough to help Irina, the first aid recipient, rebuild her summer kitchen too. So thanks to Mikhailo Kompanets and Petro Andrushenko, right now we have already picked up those items from them, and some of those items are already delivered to the aid recipients. We are working on the other construction materials to start the reconstruction in the nearest future. But as I always keep saying, there are much more coming in the future when these occupied territories will be fought back by Ukrainians, and all those people who have been suffering Russian aggression. And we know that when Russians retreat, they try to destroy as much as possible. There will be much more of those who need help. And with our World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine program, we are not only trying to rebuild ourselves and to raise money for our reconstruction processes for these people, we are inviting any foundations and NGOs to join these efforts, because there will be work for a lot of years in the future after the victory, which is very shortly coming. So please help us spread the information about World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine, help us help us meet with the right people, and by that, let's help the people in need who are feeding themselves, feeding Ukraine, and feeding the world. This is all for today. We are trying to fit into 90 minutes, but tomorrow, next time, we will have also the guests speaking and being interviewed, so that we are bringing the first-hand information for you. Any proposals or any aid that you can provide to us, we are welcome for communication. You have the contact information of me, and as I was showing at the beginning, there is a whole team of us working purely on this right now, and this is fully charitable. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the team. Thank you, ambassadors, and may God bring peace to the world and victory to Ukraine. All the best to you. We will keep in touch with you.
Thank you, Roman. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you too.
Roman, I echo Joe's sentiment. Thank you very much. And as always, Kelly and I are here for you and Lisa and the kids and anything we can do to be helpful.
I appreciate it, very much appreciate. With your help, we are spreading the word, and that's the most important. And then we'll see. Maybe we'll have a barbecue sometime in Ukrainian fields, peaceful.
That'd be good. That'd be good.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great day, my friend.
Good luck. Good luck to you in your mission too. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, dear Mr. Myers. I've been following your support very much and appreciate it, both in the donations and in the support by spreading the information on the social media. Like I just said to Mr. Nate Blum, we are hoping for the soon opportunity to invite everyone who cares to Ukraine and to show how beautiful our country can be in the peaceful times.
That would be great. I'd love to come back.
Excellent, excellent, and we'd love to have everyone with peaceful intentions, supporters, allies in Ukraine too. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. You too.